What's up, everyone? So I wanted to do another special Solocast here, and it's about a topic that I find is incredibly important right now. And, a lot of you know me as a proponent of psychedelic plant medicines, and certainly I am. But I'm also someone who's very aware of the risks associated and the potential dangers with doing it wrong. And so I want to really focus on that because all too often it's easy to talk about these life-changing positive experiences. I've had a bunch of them. I've also had some shitty experiences, and I've shared some of those as well. But it's important to give that kind of balanced perspective. I mean, the potential for psychedelic medicines to do incredible healing work for your life is, amazing. It's one of the greatest tools that we have at our disposal. But it's still a tool. It's still an instrument that can be used with good effect or with bad effect. And there's some basic principles that I think that you can follow that really minimize the risk for some of these negative experiences occurring and set the proper groundwork for some more positive encounters with the medicine. And, as someone who's been as intimately involved with plant medicines as I have, I see a lot of these, sometimes catastrophic events that don't reach the press. And of course some do, and the press loves it when it gets to them. But a lot of people with a lot of good intentions, when something goes wrong, they don't want to hurt the plant medicine, kind of movement. So a lot of these stories don't ever reach, public ears. And there's some challenging things that happen behind the scenes. But in every case that I've ever encountered, there's always been a violation of some basic principle that resulted in that, kind of the negative reaction or the negative experience. So this podcast is going to be about kind of setting the framework for that. So first of all, I think all too often people are more interested in the quality of the experience rather than the effect of the experience. Like, oh, what'd you see, bro? What visions did you have? What was it like? That's all good, and that's kind of it's just part of the fabric of the journey itself. But the reason to do any psychedelic medicine is for the result, is for the effect. And you should tailor the medicine and your intent with the desired effect that you want to get. So, I think a lot of times when people run into trouble is they're just kind of, and I've done this too, look, but I've had it with positive and negative effect, and I'll tell some of those stories. But they're more like, oh, I wonder what this is like, and instead of, I want to do this medicine because I want this desired effect. So I think really being clear on what your intentions are is super important. And each medicine has its own specific things that it's particularly valuable in helping you with. So that's a really, really important element. And then from there, you start to get into some of the more hard and fast rules. And I just wrote a blog and put that out. And I think the number one hard and fast rule is to abide by the principle of minimum effective dose. And that principle basically states that you should only take enough medicine to get the desired effect that you are going for, no matter what medicine it is, whether it's pharmaceutical, whether it's psychedelic, whether it's over the counter. Don't take more than is what is necessary to get you the desired effect. So if you have, some kind of minor infection, imagine putting your body through a full 2-week course of intravenous antibiotics. Yeah, you'll kill the minor ear infection or whatever's, minor thing is going on, but you're also going to really put your body through hell. You're going to kill all the friendly bacteria. You're going to do a lot more than is necessary to, heal that one issue. So you want to use the minimum amount of antibiotics necessary to take care of the infection. And maybe it's no antibiotics at all. And the same thing can apply to, to psychedelic medicine. If you're looking to have a nice spiritual experience, you probably don't want to choose an iboga flood. I really think the more I'm familiar with iboga, you should really choose that for a very serious intent, either reworking some large-scale personality or psychological issues that have really, you haven't been able to grapple, something that really is a lifelong challenge for you, or some major addiction issue, particularly with opiates, heroin or Oxycontin or any of those kind of opiate addictions. Iboga is by far one of the best resources for that. So again, that goes back to setting your, the goal as the primary thing. Like, what are you looking for? And then, so once you've set that, then it's about minimum effective dose. How much do I need to affect that change? And one of the stories I use in this, in the article I wrote on my blog at aubreymarcus.com, is talking about iboga. And I went to go see a very skilled shaman at administering iboga. And the way that, and I was going for a spiritual experience in awakening, and the way that he gave me medicine is he gave me one pill, and it's been extracted one time, a single time, with using natural methods from the root powder, and it was in a capsule, about 1 gram capsule. And then he talked to me for about 2 hours, just kind of rambling on, talking about this and that, and it was a fairly interesting conversation, but it was really partly, more than anything, to kill time is kind of what I was kind of sensing. And then he gave me another pill. So right off the bat there, what he's doing is he's spacing out the effect that's going to happen when that initial medicine hits. So it's not just completely overwhelming. It's understanding that taking everything right at once perhaps wasn't the best administration. Easing into it might be better for a medicine like iboga. So that's one aspect of using that principle that I think made a lot of sense. But then anyway, so he gives me a second pill 2 hours later, and then he has me lie down on a mattress. And I'm lying down on this mattress, and I can't feel anything. And maybe I'm a little bit antsy, maybe a little bit restless. And he tells me, okay, now I want you to imagine yourself on the moon. And I can't see anything. Like, I'm not feeling anything. I'm not having any visions. And so I tell him, I'm like, look, I can't see anything. I can't see myself on the moon. He says, yes, you can. I said, no, really, I can. The medicine hasn't hit yet. He says, no, see yourself on your moon. I want you to picture yourself on the moon. I was like, okay. And I could kind of barely do it. And I was like, okay, I can kind of see it. But it was just me imagining it. He's like, okay, now I want you to see what does the ground feel like on the moon. I was like, okay. And he keeps leading me on this path until I start to really envision myself on the moon. And this is really before the medicine had even kicked in. And then he says, okay, there's someone there to see you. And as he said that, I could see my grandmother, who's been a consistent presence in a lot of my psychedelic medicine experiences. My grandmother showed up. And at that point, he started asking me what she was saying and leading me through this experience that was really prior to the medicine having any kind of noticeable effect. And it was really powerful. And after, I had this kind of back and forth assisted conversation with my grandmother, that the shaman was helping me with, he taps me on the forehead and he says, remember, you don't need medicine to do this. And I kind of smiled because I got it. What he was showing me was that the medicine is a powerful tool, but really the goal should be to not use any medicine at all, to be able to reach these states, to get these answers without having to rely on something like iboga. And then, of course, after he said that, and 30 minutes later, that first pill started really kicking, and it ramped up, and I had a wild 24-hour adventure that was really powerful and mind expanding and heart opening and all of the things you would want from a medicine journey. But I've seldom seen that duplicated with iboga, and a lot of the issues that I've seen with it have been people overdoing it, 3-4 pills off the bat, and just for someone who's just looking for a pretty good spiritual awakening experience, and that can be really, really dangerous. I've seen personally 2 instances where people have been really harmed by practitioners overshooting the mark, And I think this gets to be in this kind of psychological philosophy from the practitioner, especially when they're not from a traditional setting where the medicine has done something really good for them. So they went down, they had a great experience with the medicine. They wanted to share it, and they had, really good intentions in sharing it. But to them, the medicine has this kind of holy origin. Instead of just being a tool, this is this magic ingredient that helped save their life in some way. And so when you have that kind of religious reverence for something, you don't treat it with the proper respect that's necessary to understand the principle of minimum effective dose. So they want to give people the experience they had, But instead of giving them as little as possible, they want to make sure they get a good one. So they give them too much. And I've seen that over and over again. Particularly again, and I'm kind of jumping right into it, but Iboga is one of those ones that you really want to go as light as possible. Now, if you do have a full-blown heroin addiction, I was down there, and when I was down in Costa Rica, and there was somebody else who was getting treated for heroin addiction, and his dose was 3 to 4 times my dose. He had root bark and capsules, and it was a punishing dose. The guy was awake for 4 or 5 days afterwards, but it cured his fucking heroin. Changed heroin addiction, changed this guy's life. But the minimum effective dose for heroin addiction is a lot higher than the minimum effective dose for me to have this great spiritual experience. And the shaman knew that. So heroin addiction had this, 4 times multiple to mine. Whereas there was another gentleman there, he was an Englishman, and the shaman, he'd been around there for a week asking the shaman for medicine. And the shaman's like, look, you're not ready for Iboga. I'll let you know if you are. You're welcome to stay. You're welcome to go, whatever you want to do. But you're not ready for any Iboga at this point, So the shaman was at that point not even, the minimum effective dose for that guy, based on the shaman's understanding, was 0 Iboga. And that's real mastery of the concept, understanding that this is a tool that should be used, depending on the desired effect and depending on the individual, and really, really understanding that. And anybody who is a practitioner, and yourself, if you're going to be, doing this on your own, which I would never recommend doing Iboga or ayahuasca on your own under any circumstances, but even other medicine, is to understand the potency of what you're dealing with. So really, if you have something like a new batch of chocolates, and this happens all the time particularly with marijuana edibles, you got to make sure that you know how strong this stuff is, and start slow, start small, and then figure it out. And then once you get the dosing and you get some experience with that, then maybe you can offer to share it with a friend, or, give yourself a little bit more aggressive dose for a certain desired effect. But any practitioner, really should know exactly where